All right, welcome back everybody to Joshua's Magic. This is a channel about the intersection of the ordinary mundane world or materialistic things and the spiritual world. So today in the weekly live stream, we're going to be considering the topic of the star, its symbolism, and other meanings in the Alice A. Bailey writings. And as we're going, if you have any comments or questions, put them in the live chat. And if you're watching them later, uh, put it in the comment section and I'll try to address them. But without further ado, let's move into the first quote here. And these quotes are up on my Instagram and Minds page. So if you'd like to follow along as I post them during the week, just check out the link in the description and you can find them there. So this is from Letters on Occult Meditation. And here we go. Microcosmic and macrocosmic aligning. This morning, I would touch on the matter of egoic alignment again, showing you, under the law of correspondences, the universal application. It lies based in geometry or in figures and numbers. The aim of the evolution of man in the three worlds, the physical, emotional, and mental planes, is the alignment of the threefold personality with the body egoic, or the soul body, till one straight line is achieved and the man becomes the one. Each life that the personality leads is at the close represented by some geometric figure, some utilization of the lines of the cube, and their demonstration in the form of some kind. Intricate and uncertain in outline and crude in design are the forms of the earlier lives. Definite and clear in outline are the forms built by the average, advanced man of this generation. But when he steps upon the path of discipleship, the purpose consists in merging all these many lines into one line. Gradually, this consummation is achieved. The master is he who has blended all the lines of the fivefold development into the three and then into the one. The six-pointed star becomes the five-pointed star. The cube becomes the triangle becomes the one. Whilst the one at the end of the greater cycle becomes the point at the circle of manifestation, point in the circle. Hence the effort made to teach all devotees simplicity based on a trinity of foundational truths and the inculcation of one-pointedness. So for those of you who don't know, Letters on Occult Meditation is a book by Alice A. Bailey, but it was a compilation of letters that the Tibetan had asked her to write or written to her or something like that. And it's just talking here about the alignment between your personality vehicles, the physical, emotional, mental, and the soul. And he sort of symbolically talks about it. It's probably literal on the mental plane and emotional plane and stuff, these geometric shapes. But they kind of represent things or ways of being. I don't think this is necessarily accurate, but maybe it'll give you some idea of perhaps how it is. Like a square life might be very rigid or one dimensional, and then I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know exactly what these shapes mean, but generally they're different states of consciousness, and instead of being multiple different things over time, you unify them into fewer things and then into one thing in the soul. So that's basically what he's talking about here. And the six-pointed star becomes five-pointed star. The cube becomes the triangle. And this is interesting. I've heard this about Masonry, that in one of their ceremonies, you actually have like a triangle or a cube folded into a triangle on the floor, and that's representative of the kind of fourfold aspects of the personality. Depending on how you look at it, it's the dense physical, the etheric, the emotional, and the mental. So that's four, and then you fold that into the trinity that is the soul. And then even the soul gets folded into a higher thing of the pure spirit or the monad, eventually in spiritual development. So That is the first one. And let me know if that makes sense to you guys or not. It's hard to tell sometimes if these things are connecting with people. So just let me know in the comments if anything's unclear or needs to be explained in a different way. Feedback's really helpful. And if you're liking this video, leave a like on it. That'd help me out. So the next quote we will be discussing is this. This is one that might be even more deep or confusing, but at this fourth initiation, he contacts the love aspect of the monad. So the fourth initiation is called the initiation of renunciation. And after one becomes, at the third initiation, an integrated personality, which is infused also with the soul, then the progress is not to make further identification with the soul, but it's to take that fused personality and make further identification with the monad, the sort of your personal symbolic father in heaven. And so the fourth initiation has to do with renouncing kind of just about everything that holds you in the three worlds of the mental, emotional, and physical. And you kind of see this with Jesus when he, in the Garden of Gethsemane, when he said, "Not my will, but your will be done," because he wanted to gather Israel together and build the kind of kingdom of God. But it was revealed to him at that time that it wasn't in the plan, or it wasn't possible because there weren't enough advanced people at that time. So he had to yield that very high vision and hope he had, and your will, Father, not mine. So that's kind of an example of the fourth initiation. Something pretty far ahead for a lot of us, but still worth contemplating. Anyway, at the fourth initiation, he contacts the love aspect of the monad, and at the fifth, the will aspect. The fifth is where you become an actual master of wisdom, and thus completes his contacts and responds to all necessary vibrations, and is a master on the 5 planes of human evolution. And again, so these 5 planes there's 3 planes we mentioned before: the physical, emotional, mental. But then above that, the Buddhic or intuitional, and then the Atmic plane. Those are considered the 5 planes of human evolution. But when your consciousness starts going beyond that, you're identifying with higher beings than just human, and your advancement. I mean, it's hard to put into words, and I'm sure I don't fully understand it at all. But you're kind of developing with that life you're identifying with, whether it's maybe the life that indwells the planet or the solar system or whatever. Okay, 5 planes. Further, it is at the third, fourth, and fifth initiations that he becomes aware also that of that presence which enfolds even that spiritual entity, his own monad. He sees his monad as one with the planetary logos. Through the channel of his own monad, he sees the self-same aspects which that monad embodies on a wider scale. And the planetary logos, who ensouls all the monads on his ray, is thus revealed. This truth is well nigh impossible to express in words, and concerns the relation of the electric point of fire, which is the monad, to the 5-pointed star, which reveals the presence of the planetary logos to the initiate. This is practically incomprehensible to the average man, for whom this book is written. At the sixth initiation, which is a step, so you're already a master of wisdom, and then there's this sixth initiation after that. At the sixth initiation, the initiate functions consciously as the love aspect of the monad, is brought via his quote-unquote father into a still vaster recognition, and becomes aware of that star which encloses his planetary star, just as that star has earlier been seen as enclosing his own teeny quote-unquote spark. He thus makes his conscious contact with the solar logos and realizes within himself the oneness of all life and all manifestation. And so this gets to this idea of the sort of as above, so below, and the law of correspondences, that things on one level correspond to a higher level, though there's obviously differences there. Kind of like the way, if you look at an atom, and then you look at the solar system, there's a very similarity. There's that nucleus or the core, like the sun, and then there's a bunch of particles or planets or heavenly bodies rotating it. So on a small scale, this teeny spark is kind of like a star, And then when you make contact in these higher initiations, you're contacting a greater star. And then there's even a greater star that star is just a part of, so to speak. And again, you go from the separate and diverse into the unified or the one. In manifestation, God comes from a unity out into many, and then that's the path of involution, and then the path of evolution is coming from the many back into the one or the consciousness of the one. So those are the first two quotes. And the third quote was a bit long, so I posted it on mine, so I'll be sharing it from there. Because unfortunately, Instagram has a character limit. Overstimulation of the centers. By centers, he means chakras here. There is much that I could add to what I have said on the cause of disease arising in the etheric body. But in part two, when dealing with the section on certain basic requirements, this is later in this book, Esoteric Healing, I shall elaborate the theme much further. Congestion, lack of integration, and overstimulation of the centers are obviously fundamental causes as far as the dense physical body is concerned. But they themselves are frequently the effects of subtle causes hidden in the life of the astral and mental bodies. In the case of overstimulation, the result sometimes of soul contact. So he's talking about diseases here and what causes them. And the two main factors are congestion and overstimulation. But the cause doesn't often indicate in the physical body. It happens in the etheric, the emotional, the mental bodies. There's something out of alignment there, and then that puts the energy that's flowing to the physical body out of order, and that leads to the physical disease. That's kind of the idea there. The etheric body reacts normally and by design to all the conditions found on the subtler vehicles. It is essentially a transmitter and not an originator, and it is only the limitations of the observer which lead him to ascribe the causes of bodily ills to the etheric body. It is a clearinghouse for all the forces reaching the physical body, provided the point in evolution has brought the various force centers to a condition wherein they are receptive to any particular type of force. So you might not have unfolded all your chakras enough to respond to all the energies that might be going on within you or impacting you on a deeper level. So it might not be transmitting or flowing with all those energies, but if they are, it'll just allow them through. Esoterically speaking, the centers can be in one of 5 conditions or states of being. These can be described in the following terms: closed, still, and shut, yet with signs of life, silent and full of deep inertia. 2, opening, unsealed, and faintly tinged with color. The life pulsates. 3, quickened, alive, alert in 2 directions. The 2 small doors are open wide. I assume, though I'm not certain, that that's the door to receiving the energy and the door to transmitting it. So there's the outer door and inner door. I think that's what he means there. 4, radiant and reaching forth with vibrant note of all related centers. 5, blending they are, and each with each works rhythmically. The vital force flows from all the planes. The world stands open wide. So that last stage, everything's aligned, everything can flow freely as it needs to, basically. And yeah, it's interesting, in some of these, before the last stage there, some of these it's open and flowing, but they're not all horizontally aligned. All your centers aren't aligned with your other centers, but they are open. So the final stage is blending them all together into one rhythmic whole. Related to these 5 stages, wherein the etheric body expands and becomes the vital livingness of all expression upon the physical plane, are 5 races of men, beginning with the Lemurian race. So he's not talking about races as we kind of consider them today, but kind of races that led to where we are today. And one point he says that everybody today is of the 5th or Aryan root race. Now the Nazis kind of twisted this concept, but yeah, so it's more like a state of consciousness. And so the fifth root race is what's going on today for the most part. Even in, countries that aren't white or, Aryan as people would usually understand it. But the fourth root race was the Atlantean root race, and that was obviously the root race that was primarily found in Atlantis, and that was very much an emotional consciousness, whereas today it's more of a mental consciousness, or that's what it's leading to because people aren't mentally polarized around the world. But so there's sort of a transition between the emotional consciousness of humanity to being more purely mental. And the Lemurian consciousness, if you can believe it, was uh, a physical consciousness. So things today that we just take for granted, like sort of bodily processes, were kind of not mastered by people back then. And the idea in the sort of theosophical and Alice Bailey teachings is that the first two root races weren't even purely physical. The human beings were still coming down through the aether into the dense physical manifestation. So, where were we? Lemurian root race. Yeah, beginning with the Lemurian root race, the five planes of human and superhuman expression, the five stages of consciousness, and the various other groupings of five, which you meet in esoteric philosophy. Incidentally, it might be of value and interest to point out that the five-pointed star is not only the sign and symbol of initiation, and finally, perfected man, hence the master being the fifth initiation, becoming the master at the fifth initiation, but is also the basic symbol of the etheric body and of the five centers which control the perfected man. The two head centers, the heart center, where was I? Sorry about that. Heart center, the throat center, and the center at the base of the spine. When these centers are fully awakened and functioning in right rhythm with each other, the various quintuplets to which they have referred above form an integral part of the consciousness of the perfected man. So you develop all these chakras, but at a certain point in evolution, the use of some of them kind of falls away, and you're only left using these five. He seems to indicate, or primarily using the five. I remember reading a quote in one of the Alice Bailey books that in the future evolution of humanity, not like your personal spiritual evolution, but the evolution of the human race, there'll be a kind of point of perfection reached where it's basically only the interplay between the base center and the center at the top of the head. Sometimes he leaves things out and sort of leaves it to you to ponder and consider things. So taking what he says as like absolutely literal truth can lead you astray at times. Through this particular piece of information is not, though this particular piece of information is not definitely related to the science of healing, yet the entire subject is related to energy, and energy in some form or another is related to the causes and effects of disease, because disease is the undesirable effect of energy upon the energy unit, which we call the atom. And I think he might be referring to the human as an atom, just the way solar system can be seen as an atom, in addition to the sort of, small atoms we think of. Okay. The next one we're on, back to Instagram. The old books of the East have held secretly for many ages the truth about much which is only now beginning to sink into the consciousness of the Occidental. And just in case people don't understand, Occidental was a term for Westerners that has since fallen out of use. So there was the Oriental, the Orient, the East, and then there's the Occident, the West. They taught the radioactivity of matter thousands of years ago, and so perhaps after all, there may be an equal amount of truth in their teachings about the constellations. Perhaps in the stars that we can see in the distant heavens, and in the life that is evolving within them, we have the objective of our solar logos. and the influences that are flowing toward him, affecting him towards them, and making him, in due course of time, radioactive. Because this is kind of the goal of spiritual evolution, is to move to the stage of radioactivity. So in plants, you see them becoming radioactive because they emit a perfume. In matter, you see it as, literal radioactivity. But in humans, it's a spiritual radioactivity that the aura puts out this energy of spirit. And so you're positively affecting the world around you. I mean, it was even said that Buddha's aura was like 3 miles long in some old text or book or something. In the Eastern books, they say that the sun Sirius lies the source of wisdom, that in the sun Sirius lies the source of wisdom, and that the influence or the energy of love emanates from there. Then they say that there is a constellation that is even more closely connected with our solar logos. The reason being that he is not, as yet, sufficiently evolved so that he can respond completely to Sirius, but he can respond to the influence of the seven sisters of the Pleiades. This group is a most interesting one. If you will go into the dictionary and look up the word electricity, you will find it suggested that it may be traced back to the star Electra, one of the seven sisters, and supposed by some to be the little lost Pleiad. The Eastern teachers say that all the mystery of electricity is hidden, all in the mystery of electricity is hidden all knowledge, and that when we have fathomed that, we shall know all there is to be known. What the relationship of the Pleiades to our solar system what the relationship of the Pleiades to our solar system may be, it is not possible for us to say, but even our Christian Bible recognizes it. Job speaks of the sweet influences of the Pleiades, while some of the Oriental scriptures affirm that the connection lies in sound or vibration. Perhaps the Pleiades are the source of the atomic life of our logos, the active intelligence aspect, that one which was first developed and which we may call electrical matter. Excuse me. So you see a kind of analogy between the solar system and the human vehicle. So the solar system has these different centers or planets. At least that's the physical correspondence. But in our body, we have the physical organs which correspond to the chakras or centers. And if we're not highly evolved enough, they're not responding to the higher energies. The same way our solar system isn't highly evolved enough to respond to the higher energies from the star Sirius, but it is getting those energies indirectly from one of the Pleiades, it seems to be implied here. So that's, again, the law of correspondences playing out through the system of creation. And we've got the last quote for consideration here. It was this idea I had in mind when I told you in an earlier communication to seek out a son and feed its life. So again, this is from Discipleship in the New Age, which is mostly a series of letters DK wrote to disciples working in his particular group, one of his particular groups anyway, under Alice Bailey. I gave you no suggestion to do more than let time take care of those stars whose size is small and their radiance limited. One of the difficult things for humble aspirants to grasp is that particular moment in their life history when they must shift into the realm of discriminating work. This fits them to work as we, the teachers upon the inner side, have learned to work. We work not with all who would demand our aid, but have the lesser lights to be handled by our disciples and the lesser teachers. We confine ourselves to train those stronger souls whose more potent we confine ourselves to training those more potent people whose lives can be focused in radiance, and whose response and effort warrant our endeavor. There are many gathered around you, my brother, to whom you give much strength and teaching, and whose tendency is to confuse acquiescence in your teaching and acceptance of your strength for the more difficult task of achieving divine self-confidence and innate, not borrowed strength. So there's all these people that are kind of relying on this person he's writing the letter to, instead of standing in their own strength and sort of learning to stand on their own. Let such people go, and standing as a radiant center of magnetic force, draw to yourself cooperators in the plan and not consumers of your energy. Go through the list of those you have sought to help and relinquish them to their own souls. Mind not their criticism, but dedicate yourself to more important work, a work which will appear when you have freed yourself from clinging hands of well-meaning but weak-minded aspirants. Then around the star, which is your soul, will be many, quote, shining points, unquote. There have been times when I have been hard put to it to find you because of the obstruction brought about that by those who surround you and well nigh smother you as they cling to you. So the way he writes things, it's really kind of I don't know, jarring at times. I think it's easier to read yourself than read out loud at times. But they used to just do run-on sentences, but then one particular author in I think maybe the 1800s just started shortening them down, and that caught on, and now we don't use run-on sentences anymore. But I think some of his speaking or writing style is perhaps an artifact of that. But anyway, he's talking about his sense on a subtle level, like seeing his disciples, not physically, but on the spiritual level or an energy level, that there's all this energy from all these people in his life who are sort of clinging to him, that he can't even find the guy, or he has difficulty doing it. Stand free. Having pointed this out, brother of old, go forth toward the goal and the vision with confidence. Sure judgment and knowledge that I, who for years longer than you know have watched over your progress, am standing with understanding and with confidence in you. So I really like this one a lot, and I think it can definitely apply to more people than some of the more higher abstract stuff. That there's a point where you have to kind of let people go, and not because they've done anything really negative or bad, but just it's not serving you. It's perhaps enabling them, and it's holding you back from doing stuff that's more important, that it would actually maybe in a roundabout way benefit them more in the long run. So, you might have some greater calling, and it might not even be that great. It might just be doing, some extra charitable work that's not super esoteric or anything. But if you're always dealing with people with kind of like their petty concerns and problems, which they could probably be handling themselves, then you don't have the openness to transmit spiritual force to other people, and you don't have the energy to work at things which might bring about some real positive effects, even if it's only in a relatively small sphere of influence. So, yeah, I'm curious what you people think out there. What do you think of this consideration of the star and different levels aligning, and this kind of a star on this level and higher levels too? Let me see if yeah. So I guess that's gonna wrap it up. I put instead of a normal meditation, I just put it to you this week of putting attention on your own star, the soul, and see what light shines forth to you from an increased focus on that, whether it be in meditation or just kind of having that as an attention in the back of your mind. So with that, we'll wrap things up. Thanks everybody for joining, and please leave a like, share if you think somebody else would appreciate it, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Till then, light and love to you. It's Joshua's Magic out.